I'm your host, devahntaucolonel, and we are here with another episode of the Inspired Challenge Podcast. Welcome once again, and today I bring you a guest that is quite someone that is a whole character and a half himself in his own right. I assure you guys here, we're going to hear a lot about we're going to have a lot of jokes. We're going to have a lot of great in-depth discussion about what it looks like from the secular world attacking some of these points that all of us, I'm sure, have struggled with at some point. And then what do we maybe spend too much time on that is unbeneficial to the end game and the end purposes? So now, without further ado, allow me to introduce my guest. Sir, please introduce yourself. Name, age, dating relationship status, and also what you do as a hobby or for work.
My name is Alfredo Picaza. I am 35 years old, and I do say old.
You're not 35 years young?
No, definitely not. Definitely on the old spectrum. I'm a chef. I love to bake. That is my forte. That is something that I kill it every time.
Hey.
Kill it every time. And what else did you want to know?
Relationship status.
Oh, relationship status. I am happily taken. I have a girlfriend. We made it official August 28th that we were together.
Hey, congrats.
Last year. Thank you. We've been playing that on and off game for a while.
Yeah.
I think both of us got very tired of it at the end. So,
It do be like that, for sure. So, the reason that me and Alfredo, we've known each other now for about more than a year. Maybe, is it about 2 years now?
Yeah, I think 2021.
Yeah. And so, in that time, we've talked about several different things in small capacities, like seeing passing by here and there, sharing some laughs and whatnot, and mainly anime. If you can bond over anything, it's anime.
Always.
So on this episode is going to be interesting because this is going to allow us to really kind of peel into some of the thoughts that I don't think we've ever covered in depth like that in our discussion.
Yeah.
So I guess let's go ahead and let's hit this thing, man.
Let's hit the ground running. All right.
Yes, sir. So look, you guys, in this episode, I want to talk about, like I mentioned, what are some things that maybe as followers of Jesus that we might get bogged down in the details. But before we do that, Alfredo, tell us about your story, your testimony, and like how you ended up where you are.
Okay, so I think that's a really interesting starting point. So when I was young, I suffered a lot of abuse in all capacities. Trigger warning for those listening.
Ooh, that's a good point. I know YouTube is sensitive about the word, like abuse.
So I'll just put that out there.
Appreciate
as
that.
a trigger warning. But I have suffered my fair share of bad hands. Some my fault. I will take ownership of those, and some not so much my fault. But let's not get bogged down on the details of what the abuse is. Let's get bogged down on what they brought me to. So when I was young, I used it as a way to cut down people who were for God, for Jesus, because my argument was always, if he is so benevolent, why allow me to suffer the way he did? And why allow a lot of people to suffer the way that they do? So I learned a lot about every religion, Buddha, the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, but I didn't use it in the sense of wanting faith. I used it as a way of cutting down whoever was my opponent at the time. So I learned a lot. I had a lot of what is known as synthetic knowledge, not firsthand knowledge. So everything that I read came with like a grain of salt almost, because I had never experienced the power of God. So everything that I read, I was like, well, God has never done this in my life. He's never done that in my life. So I would use the Bible and other things to make people contradict themselves. And I was really good at letting people hang themselves with their own words. And so I always walked around with a snarky attitude of superiority. Like, I am better because I don't believe what you believe. I know I did it by myself. That was not the case. We'll fast forward a few years. There was a lot of drug usage in my past, a lot of alcohol abuse in my past. And it came to a head in 2018. I was on a really bad bender. I had spiraled completely out of control. Lost my wife at the time. Lost my kids. She wanted to protect them, so she kept them from me, which, by the way, very justified, because I was a horrible, horrible father at the time, because my selfishness overtook the need to be a parent. And I also attribute that to a lack of God, because if I had known the love of a father, I would have been able to transform that to my children.
That's powerful.
But I didn't know that, because my whole attitude was always, I'm going to cut you down so I can get mine. But anyway, so 2018 rolled around towards the end. I had taken a gun from a friend, and I was tired. I couldn't live with or without the alcohol, the drugs, and I couldn't live with or without faith, because everything that I had done to that point was to satisfy self. It was, and something I've learned along my journey is, if the outcome is always going to be about me, I will hit a wall where I cannot surmount it, because it's about me. It's not about the big picture. And we'll get into that later too.
Love it. Foreshadowing.
A little bit. Or is it a red herring? We'll never know. But yeah, so I took this gun. I went to Lake Monroe at about 1 a.m. And I put the gun to my head, and I pulled the trigger. And it was a Glock. Guns notorious for not jamming, for always being good in that level. And it jammed. The gun didn't go off. And I remember being so upset, so frustrated.
That's so crazy.
Because I was like, I can't even do this right. Because again, it was always about self. So it wasn't God is saving my life. It was, I can't do this right. I have the power and I can't. So maybe I don't have the power. And that's really where it began for me. Was, I realized I don't have the power. So I turned to YouTube, which is my musical savior always. I connect a lot to music. I come from a musical family, and I listened to a lot of music growing up. So for me, when I turned to YouTube, it was, all right, show me something that's going to tell me how to make this feel better. Because obviously I can't go on drinking and consuming drugs the way I was. So
real quick, as you speak, because I want to take notes. I don't want to interrupt you, but I also don't want to lose certain parts that I want to dive into. So let me open up a notes app.
Absolutely. When I opened up YouTube, it was a video, the first thing on my recommended page, by a pastor, Clayton Jennings. I will use his name because the video did save my life. And the video, if you're interested in looking for it, was Please Don't Kill Yourself. It was a spoken word poem. I had never heard of Clayton Jennings. I had never looked into any poetry at this time. It was always about music. So the fact that it was a spoken word poem, and it was by a pastor, and it was entitled Please Don't Kill Yourself.
That's so on the nose.
I was like,
I've never heard of it.
I was like, all right, God, maybe you are real. Maybe this is the beginning of the transformation because obviously you have a message to get to me. And, you know, when I heard it, I was in tears. I was in tears completely. And that was the beginning of the transformation for me. It wasn't the beginning of me getting sober or anything like that, but it was the beginning of a change of heart. You know, I can't remember where in the Bible it says it, but it talks about giving you the, I'm paraphrasing here, because I don't know the exact Bible verse off the top of my head, but it talks about giving you the desires in your heart. And a lot of people, especially in the secular world, take it as God's just going to give me what I want, when I want, how I want it. And that is not the case.
Help me get $1 million.
Yeah, help me. You know, that selfishness that we want so bad that we pray for, because my plans are better than God's, right? And so what I've come to realize is that Bible verse actually means that I will change your heart to have the right desires.
That. Oh man, I love that. We're gonna have to jump into that. That's a no. Continue, but we're gonna jump into that.
So, you know, so I that was the beginning of that transformation where he was changing my heart to have his desires instead of my desires.
Right.
And that really was the pinnacle for me, you know. Even though it took me 2 more years, 3 more years actually of stumbling to get sober, but 2 more years before God really shook me hard. Again, and I say again because I think that 2018 moment was definitely a very hard shake, where he was like, no, I really need you to go this way. I know you want to go left, but I really need you to go right. And you'll understand later. And that quote that I showed you before the podcast, I'll bring it up now. It's from a movie, What Dreams May Come. Robin Williams' character said it. It's not about understanding. It's about not giving up. I didn't have to understand why he wanted me to go right instead of left. That wasn't my job to understand why. My sponsor tells me, why is not a spiritual question. Get it out of your vocabulary. You don't need to know why. What you need to know is how and what. How are you going to overcome and change? And what are the tools that you need to do it with? Has nothing to do with why. My job is not to ask why. My job is to fulfill my purpose. So, like I said, the desire was changing, but at this point, it was still about me.
Right.
To a certain extent, there was work being done, but it wasn't where it needed to be yet. At this point in my life in 2018, I had done the Rooted program at Journey Christian Church. Shout out! But I had done the Rooted program there, and I didn't understand why I was there. I mean, I had kind of done it just to, I felt like a pull to kind of do it, but I didn't understand what the pull was. And then, like, I think a month into Rooted is when I tried to take my life and all that stuff happened.
Right.
I had to take a week off of Rooted because of that. But something happened. I met a friend in Rooted. Shout out to Rob. And he introduced me to a lot of people at Journey. He introduced me to this small group run by Cass and Caleb.
Shout out to Cass and Caleb. Man, such a confusing.
Yeah. They I think that group was very fundamental in changing my view on what people were. Because, as I said, my past was filled with a lot of suffering, a lot of A word. So I had a mistrust, a misgiving of people. If you were nice to me, I wanted to know why. You had to have an ulterior motive. You can't be nice to be nice. you wanted something from me, and I was going to find out what. And if it didn't serve my purpose, I was going to use you and discard you. So that's how I lived my life. And I think the culmination of me having to go into the hospital because of trying to take my life, and then meeting Cass and Caleb and meeting that small group, and really taking off from that point, these people changed my life. There's a lot of people that changed my life in that group. I'm not going to go into names because we'll sit here for like 5-10 minutes with the names and getting shout outs.
Right.
But the people in that small group know exactly who they are. I was a miserable person. And I get emotional about this because it's very real to me. I didn't know how to be happy. I didn't know how to live life any other way but to be an island. And they introduced me to a world where I was loved and accepted. And I wasn't looked at for my flaws and for the past that I had done, but rather for who I could become. And what they saw was a child of God who had made mistakes and who had a better purpose ahead of him. And for that, I will always be thankful to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. You read my mind.
Sorry.
No, you're all good, man. You're all good. Realness there.
But
no.
they transformed that part of me. And so I still had bad habits. I still had a lot of ups and downs of me going back out and using, trying to get sober, go back out, using, drinking, whatever, going back out, come back. And I wanted to try so hard, but I couldn't. And I had spent a lifetime lying to people saying, yeah, I'm doing good, because I didn't want people to know the truth about me. It was a way of defending myself against hurt. I realize that now. But 2020, February, I had been dealing with pain since December, November of 2019. I was spitting up blood, everything. And I was like, I don't need to go to the hospital. I got this. By the way, if you're spitting up blood, probably a good thing to go to the hospital, as any doctor will tell you. Shout out? Yeah.
Shout out
Sorry. But I thought, this isn't an issue. I can deal with the pain. I have a high threshold of pain. I walked on a broken femur. I broke my hand and popped the bones back into place. I still have a high pain threshold. I had a 2nd-degree burn on my arm from boiling oil and didn't go to the doctors until 6 hours later.
Madman.
So, because I had to continue working. Not I had to. They actually told me to seek medical attention. And I was like, when you get somebody to cover my shift, I'll go. And they're like, you psychopath. But that was always my thing. So I always thought, in 2020, in February, I had this blinding pain, which I came to find out later was acute necrotizing pancreatitis with massive organ failure. Basically, my pancreas, a gallstone came out of my gallbladder, lodged itself in the bile duct. My pancreas got very upset because it had no enzymes, got enlarged, started shutting down my filtration system, my kidneys, my liver. All the fluid gathered around and said, hey, where's the best place to go? The lungs! The lungs! And they did, and my lungs collapsed. By the time they put me on life support and in a coma, I was breathing 13% oxygen only.
Oh, man.
I should not be here. Not just because of the usage and the alcohol abuse that, I was very prevalent at, but 2020, I shouldn't be here. I dealt with that pain for a long time, and most doctors will tell you that to deal with pancreatitis for 3 months and not seek medical attention is insane. Because your body, the pancreas was eating itself, and the pancreas does not regenerate. And once it's gone, it's gone. I lost 60% of my pancreas. I am now diabetic, insulin dependent for the rest of my life. Eat healthy and don't do drugs, kids. Or drink. Let's just cut all that out because it's really bad for your health. And I didn't know that. All the fast food places, all the quick instant gratification I had spent my whole life chasing was really my downfall. It was, so 2020 happened. I was on life support. I weighed about 230 pounds. When I got out of the hospital, 8 months later, something like that. 7, 8 months later, I had to learn to re-walk because I don't know if you're aware of this, but laying in a bed for a long time will leave you with atrophy.
Yep.
Your muscles forget how to do certain things. It is not cute. Everybody's telling me, "Oh, hit on the nurses, they're cute." I'm like, they have to wipe my butt. Maybe not so cute to them.
Choose your battles.
Choose your battles, absolutely. Where they're your caregivers, and I like that word a lot better than caretaker. Caretakers take. Caregivers give you strength. They give you a certain sense of growth that you can overcome. Takers take away that ability from you in the sense that they don't allow you to do it for yourself. Caregivers motivate you to do it for yourself. That to me is the difference, and that's why I will always say, shout out to Advent Health for saving my life in 2020. Shout out to the nurses in the ICU and the PCU, because quite frankly, without them, I would have given up. And there was a point where I was going to give up. I got sent home in April, and my feeding tube got infected, got bacteria in it, and they kept feeding me through the tube anyway. Man. Yeah, I have a second belly button. And
throws up edit.
No, I don't have pictures of that. But that feeding tube got infected, so when they kept feeding me, that bacteria got into me. I ended up turning sepsis. I started throwing up my bowels. Like literally every time I threw up, it smelled like somebody had gone to the bathroom.
Dog.
And I was throwing up black, like coffee ground black, and it was just. I was like, well, this isn't normal. So I went back into the hospital. I was only out for a week, still on bed resting and everything. But I went back home, or back to the hospital. And I will say, so this was during COVID, but right before COVID hit, where it really got to the point where it did. Cass, Caleb, a lot of people from Journey came and visited me, including Pastor Jeremy and Crystal. And I am forever indebted to the people that prayed for me, that took time to come visit me. And I owe them a lot, because I was ready to give up. And like I said, I had spent most of my life being unhappy or chasing happiness, without being able to understand that happiness is an emotion and it's fleeting, and it can go away. What I found was joy through Jesus. And what I mean by that is joy is something that cannot be taken away from me. It is not something that can be shaken. It is a state of being. And I only got that once I started really transforming. So all these people in the hospital that prayed for me, all these people that came to visited me, And I remember my mom talking to me one day while I was in the hospital before they completely shut it down. Like I wasn't allowed visitors. But she told me, she said, the light in your eye is gone. You've given up. And that was hard for me to hear. Because here I was, this man in the secular world who I was taught, you don't cry, you don't show weakness. And, there were certain boxes I had to fit into. And one of them is no matter how much pain I'm in, nobody's supposed to know. Mm. I can't accept help because that is what I was taught from the world. A man does not reach out for help. I'm here to tell you that that is a lie. A real man knows when to ask for help, knows when it is too much, knows that the burdens that get on your heart, if you don't release them, they will eat you alive. And I called a friend. His name is Mick Pritchard. And we sat on the phone for, I want to say 30 minutes to 45 minutes. And he prayed with me, for me. I didn't realize I had touched people's lives because it was always about me. And I didn't realize that I was planting seeds for God without knowing Him. And He expressed to me His love and just what He had seen from me. And I didn't know how to quantify that in my head because I had nothing to offer. I had nothing to offer anybody. And here were these people who kept coming to visit me. Here was this man who would talk to me on the phone, who's praying for me and with me. I had nothing to offer. How can you love me when I have nothing to offer you? And I realized all these people had one thing in common. And that is that they knew God on the level I didn't. Mm-hmm. And when you know God, you're able to give love freely because Jesus did that for us. He gave love freely. And that was one of the things that transformed me. The doctors told me in 2020, you drink again, you'll die. And I heeded their warning for a while, but in the back of my head, I was like, you don't know me. You don't know me. My case is different. I'm unique. I can beat all the odds all the time. And I went out on a bender one last time. And that was October 29th, 2021 is my sobriety date. And at that point, I really started to get into the Word. I was still miserable. I still didn't know how to be happy. I didn't know how to surrender to God. Because my greatest attribute, I always thought, was playing God. Mm-hmm. And even though my life was in shambles, unmanageable, burnt to the crisp, those who knew exactly what I was doing were very unhappy with me, and those who didn't know, it was because I pushed them far away enough that they couldn't know. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to feel like I had some power, so I thought life was unfair. So I thought the only way to make it fair was if I played God. It's a common mistake in the world today. I see a lot of people doing it. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think that if I can just get this, I'll be happy. If I can get this amount of money, this job, this girl, this house, this endorsement deal, whatever, I'll be happy. But what happens when you get it and you still feel empty inside? Mm. And that was my thing. All my life I had chased instant gratification. And that's what this world has brought to me, which is, fast food. You get it now. You don't have to wait.
Right.
You want to feel good, have a drink. It'll change everything. Smoke a joint. It'll change the way you feel. Everything will change in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing about instant gratification that nobody tells you. You have to continuously keep chasing it. Because after you get that instant gratification hit, that one like on Facebook, that one like on YouTube, whatever it is, now I need to chase the next one because that one wasn't enough.
Yes.
So you're left with, man, I hate to say this, but you're left with a Friday. And what I mean by that is Fridays leave you wanting more.
Yeah.
You get excited, you see the weekend coming, but it's over so quick you're always wanting more.
Yeah. When's the next Friday?
When's the next
How can I
Friday?
get through just all
Exactly.
these
So
until-
if I can be happy on Monday, then Friday doesn't matter so much anymore. But again, it's not about happiness, it's about joy. And it's about bringing joy to others. I've shared my testimony with people close to me, and a lot of people have told me, man, if I went through even half the stuff that you've been through, I would have given up long ago. And it's not that I was built different. I tried to give up. I put a gun to my head and I pulled the trigger. I wanted to walk clean out. And I think the way I drank and the way I abused drugs was another way of trying to get out. I was trying to end my own life by my hands because I was so miserable. And so when he prayed for me, when my friend Nick prayed for me and with me, after that conversation, I remember crying for like a half hour after I got off the phone and just bawled. And that's another thing I was always taught. Men don't cry. You can't cry. Suck it up, buttercup. Be a man. Only women cry. It's a sign of weakness. Is it? Because Jesus wept. So if God can weep, why can't I? Granted, his circumstances were a little different. He wept when John the Baptist was beheaded. I wept because I was unhappy in life. Maybe that was my John the Baptist being beheaded, But what I came to find out was a part of me had to die. And what I mean by that is the secular part of me had to kind of go away. I couldn't be a person who wanted instant gratification, who wanted the quick fix, the easy out. Like I'm never willing to look inside and change, because that was the thing. Throw medication at me, I'll take it. Throw me in all these things, I'll take it. Because I don't have to look at the problem, which was my lack of faith and that God-sized hole that I had in me. I can shove it down with everything else. I can solve it with everything else. And that's not true. It's not true at all. I needed God. I don't know. I think I need God more than he needs me, to be honest. I think we all do. Because I think what happens when I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're good. You're good.
Crying just kind of left me a little snotty.
So let's do this.
Yeah.
First, thank you for being willing to share your testimony, share just your vulnerability, obviously with me, but for the audience as well.
Men cry all the time.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm a big baby.
I had a great guest on. His name is Horacio, and he talked about some things, and then his family was calling him up saying, like, man, you've been going through this stuff too. I thought I was the only one. I'm glad to know. And so I know that this right here is going to touch some people out there, so thank you for that.
Of course.
And for providing that. Let's do this. give you like 2 minutes if you want to clear out the nostrils or anything.
Yeah.
I'll pause this recording and then we'll come back and we'll start up the next segment of this interview here.
Yeah. I would love a chance to clear my nostrils.
Absolutely. So you guys, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we're going to jump into the discussion portion where me and Alfredo will kind of go back and forth on just some of the concepts that he mentioned, and we'll just continue to get a little bit more of what he's recognized, some of the wisdom that he's gotten, and we're going to get into this discussion of like his secular self versus his now spiritual self, and do some looking at how this looks at application for us to apply onto others. So don't go anywhere. After edit, you won't notice anything. We'll be right back with this episode.